Let's now welcome Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, who's the chairperson at African Diaspora Forum. Doctor, thank you so much for your time today. So you have concerns about some of your members no longer being welcome to ply their trade in the country. What has led you to this view?
Well, good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers. Well, look, our views are basically that we've got laws. I mean, South Africa, I think it's a country of laws, and where rule of law should always be upheld. And if anyone violates or infringes on the law, they must then be dealt with in terms of, the courts. So a situation where, for example, we've got people being, disallowed to practice their trade when the law allows them to do that is something that is quite unfortunate. And that's where our biggest concern is, because what we are saying is, look, we've even had, I think, some of the municipal bylaws, like in Limpopo, in the recent court judgment, which shows that the court said anyone who is allowed, to register, and particularly asylum seekers, should be allowed, to do the business, despite, the disclaimers that we may find in some of the municipal bylaws that are trying to buy, or rather to bar, asylum seekers from starting, those businesses.
Doctor, according to you, who's obviously on the ground with your members in some of these communities, what do you think has really led to these hostilities?
Well, look, there are quite a number of issues that obviously have come cumulatively to bring this. There is the unfortunate incident most spoken about issue, of course, of children that have died and allegedly because they consumed food from Spaza Shops, because this farm, we have not had any scientific report that has linked the children to whatever food that was gotten from the children. And as a result, that is what we have seen as, the what I can say as the climax of this whole issue. But we've always had these things brewing, and a lot of them have been coming from, politicians that have been coming up with this, rhetoric, populist, politically correct, that says, these Spaza Shops, these kind of businesses must be reserved, for locals and not foreign nationals. But forgetting that the part of the foreign nationals that is particularly in this business is mainly those that are asylum seekers and refugees who by law are allowed to operate in that space because, South Africa has ratified the 1951 Convention and related statutes, which makes it municipal by law. And for as long as they are not in camps and they are living within communities, they're allowed to integrate and be socially cohesive with the locals. And that is where the big problem is, because we have seen people that go out there and, rally people to, think that the business is by, especially when you've got asylum seekers operating there, they shouldn't be operating them. It is against the bylaws that want to protect the local industry. And I think that's where the big problem is, political correctness and trying to garner political votes, by using the weakest link or something that people can easily identify with. And of course, high levels of unemployment, because levels of unemployment have been growing, obviously, in South Africa, and people are hungry. They are easy even to manipulate and are fighting.
And Doctor, speaking of compliance and having laws that need to be respected, let's talk about how you also regulate your foreign nationals in terms of their compliance. What do you ask for and need from them in order for them to be part of your organization? And how do you ensure that they actually comply with the country's laws as enshrined in the Constitution?
Well, look, what basically is happening is, if you remember, I think we've said this before, that we'd actually tried a drive, when the police minister was, Begitele, and then, the Home Affairs minister was, Dr. Mtoledi. And one of the things that we requested was that we need a system that allows the African diaspora to start with, to record people that come in and that the migrants does not give them, for example, a legal status, but that makes us know that we've got a person that of this nature that is in the country for purposes of curbing crime and other things. Because look, if crime takes place because someone is a ghost in a country and undocumented, it doesn't only affect, citizens, it affects, everyone that lives in the country.
Doctor, but how do you regulate your members? Doctor, yes. How do you regulate your members to ensure that they've got all the necessary documentation that actually allows them to be participants in the businesses, ensuring that they also respect the laws that are enshrined as per our Constitution?
Without authority, the only thing that we can do and that we do is to advocate to give these trainings and learnings, because we have no authority to enforce the fact that, somebody should, comply with, and which is what, obviously the discussion that I was telling you could not, lead up to. So obviously the best that we do is to have, these, advocacy meetings, and including in terms of business, we'd also organize that we should be allowed to have people interpret or rather write some of these municipal bylaws, particularly in languages like Swahili that are relatively common to some of the people that are in this, that can be understood by a lot of people so that they comply. But all those unfortunately end up becoming just desktop discussions that cannot be, put into place, because ultimately the red tape that's, at the top, doesn't bring back whatever those, agreements so that, they should be implemented.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Doctor, in terms of what you're saying, you are now concerned that your members will not be able to conduct their businesses in the townships. Have you tried to engage with those communities and really get to understand their reasons behind them saying they no longer want these foreign nationals to operate in their backyards, rather?
We have, we've done quite a lot of this. We do a lot of it. And what we have noticed is that basically the people, the bulk of the people that actually are saying they don't want them to operate are those people that might want to get into the Spaza business, or those that, have got some political, motive. Because the bulk of the people that say where they are operating, they've them to operate there, and if they don't want them to operate there, they simply terminate their lease and say, look, you can't continue to operate there, and they cannot refuse, to leave if they do not have an agreement with the landlords. We've got landlords, people that, in the communities that come and look for lawyers to say, no, we're not going to be bullied by a few people because, they might have interest in the business or because of their political, inclination. Please, we need to take this matter to the court. And it is our members that come back and say, look, if we take some will actually be declaring, or let's try and engage first before we even go to court and see if we can find common ground. But the locals that are affected, that, some of them buy and some of them, have got these as tenants, have not been very forgiving when it comes to that.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for your contribution this afternoon. Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, African Diaspora Forum chairperson.